Sriram S., author and life wisdom coach, Happiness at Work, and Dr. Raina Khatri Tandon, CEO of Right to Rise. Gone are the days when firms used to believe that supervision, monitoring, and disciplining your employees would only lead to productivity. We live in an era of out of the box thinking and creative solutions to dynamic problems. Employees want to work with free will. They prefer coaching as a style of management. If a manager or supervisor is going to be on their tail dictating every move for them, they will soon leave the organization. We are not the industrial revolution or bygone technological era. The discussion will be about the paradigm shift need of the flatter organization structure and how organizations can be more agile in the new reality that demands more freedom, flexibility, and innovative approach. Our esteemed panelists would share their views on this insightful topic, flatter, more agile organizations. HRAI welcomes you all to the session on connecting the dots. To know more about HRAI and its events, I would request all the participants to visit the link and details posted in the chat window. It would be great to have all the participants' feedback. We will be running a poll before the Q&A session. Request all participants to kindly give your feedback on the session. I now take the privilege to introduce our moderator for the session. Dr. Raina Khatri Tandon, CEO, Right to Rise. Dr. Raina Khatri Tandon is an international acclaimed speaker, mentor who has been on various conferences and summits representing India on gender equality, women and child rights and inclusiveness. She holds double degree in IT and law. She is the founder of Right to Rise, India's first ISO 17024 and 21001 accredited organization, and RKD Foundation, which is catering to training, certifications, compliance, and auditing of various organizations and institutionalized core values of justice, equality, safety, and ethical values at workplaces. She is an alumni of EDX Harvard, USA in Women Right and Child Psychology under Human Rights. She has been facilitated as Thrive Global 100 Mentors, mentor at Cherry Blair Foundation, World HRD Congress Women in Leadership 2018 Awards, and 101 Most Fabulous Global Training and Development Leaders Award 2019. As the end also the UN Rex Karamveer Global Fellowship Awardee 2019-20. Raina has represented India as World Women Summit 2020 and is also a global ambassador for sustainable SDG 5 UN goals for gender equality, inclusiveness, and UN Chartered Human Rights. She has been working as an external ICC member on advisory for almost over 500 organizations. You can also follow her on LinkedIn. The link for the same has been shared in the chat window. And without wasting much time, I will hand over the platform to Ms. Raina. Over to you, Ms. Raina.
Good afternoon, members, and welcome to HRAI. Today, I have the esteemed honor of bringing together Mr. Sriram and Colin Mendes. Thank you very much, Faisal, for introducing me and welcoming to this platform. A warm welcome to all you lovely members of the community. We are here to welcome Mr. Sriram, whose brief profile speaks about an author of Happiness Habits. He's also the happiness at work expert and consults, teaches happiness at workplace. I'm sure the much needed aspect of the hour. He is a high performance individual with life wisdom coaching as his expertise. He has over 25 years of work experience in corporates, and majority of it he heads as a head HR. He's been featured as a TEDx speaker, NASCOM expert, Great Places to Work, AmCham, and top 50 leaders in South India. Awesome. We are looking forward to hearing him. He's also none other than a person who's featured at the Economic Times, People Matters, Habit Coach podcast, and much more. So welcome to you, Mr. Sriram, to this esteemed platform of HRAI.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Next on panel, we also have Mr. Colin Mendes. Colin Mendes is the head of human resources for Voltas Bico, a JV between Voltas and Arclec. In his current role, Colin is building talent that brings everyday happiness to each and every household. In his early assignments, Colin has worked across various industries from engineering solutions to telecom, ITs, FMCGs, and pharmaceuticals. I'm sure this is going to add great advantage for all you visitors here and everybody who always comes to this community to hear esteemed speakers. This is going to add great value having two lovely speakers on panel. Let me also add by saying he holds senior leadership positions at Voltas Group HR Head, Tata Sons, Tata Teleservices, WNS Global Services, Bharti Airtel, Hindustan Unilever, Pfizer, special exposure and people and change management during mergers and acquisition. I'm really looking forward to hearing both of you for sure. Colin has also been recognized as a Great Manager Awards 2017, aligning organizational vision hosted by People Business Economic Times. Colin loves to explore new geographies and also a travel blogger. He has also enjoys various genres of music. So a lot more to unveil about these two lovely people that we have on the
Thank
panel
you.
today. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much, Raina. I think thank you for your kind words. It's a truly pleasure to be with you and with everyone online this afternoon. Thank you so much.
Superb, superb. The honors are totally yours, Sriram and Colin. So over to you to speak a few words before we start this panel with the lovely questionnaire that we hold. So Sriram and Colin, the floor is yours for you to speak probably 2 words before we start.
Okay, all right, I'll go. So
Okay.
thank you so much. Appreciate being here. And I think this is a topic which is of great relevance today. And the faster we address some of these, kind of things, and these are forward-looking things, which will come up later as issues. So if the more progressive organizations should start thinking, people also need to start, kind of thinking how those changes can happen in a positive way rather than being pushed into that. So I'm extremely happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me on this panel. Look forward. Over to you, Colin.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sriram. And I was really happy with this, to hear about this topic because I think this topic is so very relevant in today's time. And I picked up 3 words that Faisal mentioned: freedom, flexibility, and innovation. And I think these are so very important in today's DNA, where organizations need to weave these three into how they want to structure themselves. And I think if I look back, the last period, 2 years have taught us to rearrange, to relook at everything that we do, and also, made us look at to be more agile, made organizations want to be more agile, want to be more nimble-footed in that sense, and also have good amount of flexibility to re-modify themselves. So I think a lot's changed thus far, and I think this topic is so very relevant when companies are relooking. The cost is most important, and companies are relooking at their organization structure, and flatter organization structures, or whichever type of organization structure, it has to deliver more value to the business. And I think that's the underlying philosophy in defining what structure is right for you. But I think beautiful topic, and happy to share a little bit of my contribution to this one.
Thank you. Thank you. So that actually brings me to the first question to you, starting with you, Mr. Collins. Since you spoke about value and you ended with value, let me pose the question in a very similar structure. How can organizations radically flatten the structure, or how does unstructuring an organization unlock massive value?
Okay. No, and as I mentioned when I spoke about, it has to deliver more value to the business. So let me look back, and what is happening in today's, if I would say, rapidly changing world, and what are some of the key business challenges that every organization is facing. Uh, you know, if you look at what's happening across the world, and we look at even closely in India, there is a huge impact on increasing customer demands, high customer expectations. This is something that's gotten accelerated over a period of time. And today, the customer is becoming more and more impatient. Yeah. You've seen the acceleration of digital transformation that's actually taking place. And today we're talking about chat GPT and so on and so forth, and artificial intelligence, and being used for customers and so on and so forth. We're also talking on the flip side of data, device security, and a whole bunch of things that are important from an overall governance perspective. You know, that being said, I think it's important to look at talent, and we've experienced, talent being scarce in organizations. Future work going to be different? What is the kind of organization model that will deliver more value to the business is going to be very, very key. Yeah. And with that backdrop in mind, I think some of the things that come to my mind, which is very, very important. One is talking about creating more stability in a very, very disturbed, I would say, unstructured environment that is currently there today. The second is about most of creating something that is sustainable in the age of uncertainty. Yeah, we're looking at inflation. We're looking at economic situation being a little iffy right now. We're looking at investments happening to a very large scale in technology and innovation. And the most important thing, we're looking at how do we upskill our employees, and how do we rearrange the entire organization structure. And all this is with the here with one motive: to bring about agility. You make your organization more agile, you make your organization more robust, and you make your organization more futuristic. And so therefore, when whichever structure, as I mentioned, where, how do we deliver more value to the customer, more value to the organization, is going to be paramount, not only today, but also in the go forward. Yeah. And so to me, a few points that really come, which to me is going to be deliver more value, is it's about creating structures that are flatter, yeah, where we have minimum layers and we are able to increase speed and bring about greater agility. To my mind, is going to deliver a lot of value. If I take you back in time, or just about 2 years, with the advent and with the acceleration of digital transformation and digital communication, the span and layer in the organizations have got rearranged. And to me, to my mind, there is an entire level that actually has kind of gotten decluttered, which is somewhere in the middle. Yeah. So you could have, so in the digital environment, the span and control can be far much more larger and much more bigger, which actually enables that you are able to control a larger number of people. So do we need really managers and managers of managers and managers of managers of managers? Do we really need that environment? So flattened structure to me is really going to make a very, very large impact in terms of delayering and in terms of bringing about more speed and agility. The second and the last final one is about creating more flexibility within the system. Yeah. In a flatter structure, you can have more flexibility. You can ensure that, teams are able to work more quickly, and deliver, to the business at a far more rapid pace. And rather than wait for hierarchy and things like that to respond. I'll give you a quick example before I conclude. In
We'll
most
come
of
to the example. I think you
Okay.
hold that because I'm going to come back to that question again, and you can
Sure,
iterate
sure,
that
sure.
example for me. But
Sure,
with
sure.
the same line of thought, because you have initiated that thought, I would like Sriram to come in here and give us the idea on how do you think, when he says that there is flexibility, there is a lot of space of improvement of growth, how can you see flat management empowering employees and improving agility? As an organizational perspective, I do understand. I think Colin is talking of improvising the systems and getting the agility. But if I was an employee and I walk in and I say, hey, you're going to change systems for me, how do you think that empowers them to work? So Sriram, uh, how do you see flat management empowering employees and improving agility?
See, I think let's look at it holistically. One, what your hierarchy or your, kind of larger structures create is layers. Now, layers, like in practical life, when you're cold and you have layers, it protects you. But when you want to get up and go, then the same layers hold you back. So, that is what is happening today. So the layers have been created for protection rather than for agility. Okay, so now when you want to move quickly and times have changed, suddenly these layers become a hindrance. And because you're used to those layers for so long, you now are finding it difficult to get rid of them. So fundamentally, there lies our problems. Now, with layers, several issues come, which is that it obviously, that the more you go, the more people, and we are talking about people layers. So people have opinions, you have to take approvals, everything takes time. So by its nature, it holds you back. It was designed to hold you back so that experience, and expertise were at play because it needed that. But in today's world where technology has become so phenomenal and fast, the layers actually are not required. Okay. And that truth has not been something which people have been able to digest because you've always had that, model to support you. And now suddenly, if you take it off, what will happen is a question that people have. Just in terms of empowering people, right? Just look at it. If I have an idea today, now if I want to get that idea implemented, I need to go through 4 people before it gets signed off. Now, the 4 people will ask you multiple questions. Now, so by the time you get and convince those 4 people, you are almost tired. And that momentum is required for agility. The momentum dies when you kind of go through layers of, convincing people. And today, that's what happens, that accessibility to get something done, somebody to sign off on your idea. I want something, see, and how we work is we get an idea, we want action on it. Only then, momentum happens, we get excited. Now, if you are saying, okay, you come up with an idea, but it's going to take 2 months for this idea to see the thing, then by the time something else comes up in life, you're not necessarily as, interested in this. And really, that's where the real issue for people is that, I have something, but I don't know if my boss likes it. I don't have access. I have to convince so many people. It takes so much time. So that all those are draining. And really, and that's what we need to, change. If we want things to be agile, we need to empower. If you think people are smart, give them the opportunity to be themselves and do what they're good at by not compromising everything. You need to oversee, you need to have some controls, but not because it was designed so many years ago and hence you don't want to change it. And really our problem is with, history rather than current.
Right. That's absolutely somewhere resonating with a lot of leaders that I come across, Sriram. And with that, I again want to go back to Colin, asking on that example which he iterates, also keeping in mind the next question which comes up to my mind. What is the best organizational structure? Now that Sriram says, hey, give freedom to the employees to explore. That's not a really good idea for people on the top. Let me tell you that. Okay, and as CEOs of companies that we hold, at least I know that a lot of us don't like power to be given to people to explore until we are leaders who really want to build leaders. I have seen giving that power to all the people across at my sector, and there are umpteen number of good and innovative ideas coming out. But not all leaders are ready to take risks. Not all leaders are ready to explore. Not all leaders are ready to play around with all the resources they have. So the next question is, what is the best organizational structure that helps businesses thrive? And how is this flat structure that you're describing in the example yet to come better than all of them?
Absolutely. And let me just add to what Sriram mentioned, because, you kind of spoke about that idea and that got into my mind. And let me, just add to that. And before I respond to you, Raina, I think the important thing about this entire thing is, we created a system within our company where ideas we create a platform for ideas to really flourish in that sense. And we call this program Impact Making Every Day Better, And I think what I would say that, a lot of ideas emerge from the grounds up. But the important thing is the bottleneck. And that is what actually determines how you are going to structure, how you enable ideas actually flourish by giving it a proper path and ensuring that it actually converts into reality. And that's, I think, the important thing. So we actually created a mechanism where these ideas came up, and then they were able to get fine-tuned and able to come to see the light of the day. And that actually shows how agile you're able to create a mechanism that is able to deliver this part of it. So I thought just wanted to make a quick mention of that. But so coming to your point on in terms of what is the best organization structure, I wish I had a magic wand that I could tell everyone this one, because there is no best organization structure. But I think what is really important is that there is a structure that, as I mentioned, that is able to deliver more value to business. This is the ideal structure that needs to be looked at. And so when one is looking at creating an organization structure, what is the core value that you want to create, and what is the core USP that you want to keep within, and that is something that will be your organization's core part of it. And I think this is very important. So that is possibly what you will keep within, and the remaining is you can outsource. And today, I come from a manufacturing background, where a large part of your manufacturing is also outsourced. And many organizations today are even outsourcing a large part of, that's typically the model where outsourcing takes place to a largest extent. So then then you create an organization structure that is relevant to the organization. Or if you want to create a structure that's relevant to the customer, how are you able to respond quickly to the customer? Is the manager, and the example that I was giving you, is the manager at the call center who picks up, or the person who call center executive, is that person empowered to give a quick response that satisfies the customer, or does he or she need to consult his manager, her manager, or his manager? So if that is going to take place, you're going to get a disgruntled customer at the end of the day. So I think that's very important when you're deciding your organization structure, which is best suited. You need to keep the customer at the epicenter and then create a structure around that. Having said that, since we're talking about flatter structures, because I truly believe that there are significant merits in a flatter structure, whether we talk about from an organization perspective or from an employee perspective. And I think, lesser layers definitely, will help in ensuring quicker coordination. I give you an example of the call center in this case. Quicker communication, and also quick decision making. The customer is an irate customer on the other end. Are you able to respond quickly to the customer? I think which is very critical. Also, from an overall cost perspective, what is the large layer that we need to do, which we can declutter? Yeah. And how do we ensure there is more quick speed of response from the top to the last mile? I think these are two critical aspects to my mind from an organization perspective. From an employee perspective, today, the employee feels more empowered. The employee feels that they have more autonomy to talk about it, and they are able to communicate directly to the customer and take a decision on the spot. And I think with that, obviously, there is more productivity. They're more motivated. They just feel that they're part of the decision-making process. I think this has got significant benefits in really creating, and how a flat structure can be really the better of the two. But having said that, what structure which is suited to your business will actually, or which is suited to best respond to your customer, is the structure that you need to have.
Absolutely. That was really, really in depth of understanding some of the processes that they can maintain. But I'm still looking at how scalability is something that can be done. So I'd welcome Sriram to understand how successfully scaling a flat structure organization would actually help us, because I'm sure we all want to grow. We don't want to just be one entity, one setup. Can we have some examples of any successful companies that you can think of how they would have managed that? And, how is it different from a hierarchical structure?
Okay, all right. See, let's go back a little bit. Hierarchy has its root. The word hierarchy actually has its root in something called a sacred ruler. That's what it starts from. And management has its roots in control. Okay, so some of these things have been created to control people, and with good reason, because you wanted people to do exactly what was needed, because fundamentally you're working with machines and you didn't want innovation or creativity over there, because the machine needed a certain input, and if you put your creativity, machine cannot handle that input. Okay. So, and including, kind of your units like manufacturing, your Ford Motors, and which created the assembly line and all that. Fundamentally, the whole management and hierarchy was to tell people, hey, do this, and there is somebody to monitor that you do that. Now, that was the origin of how things have actually happened in the workplace. Now, when you come today, there are two issues. Most people understand that a flatter hierarchy is better because they also know that the layers are holding them back and things like that. Just that there are some issues, which is that if I get rid of it, what am I going to deal with? Okay. And there are two parts to this problem. One is the part which is around people, because especially if you look at a culture like India, where status is very important. Now, flat structures don't allow you to keep promoting people. And people expect that promotion because it is an acknowledgement of their efforts and appreciation for what they've done and so on. And so especially I've noticed in India, that the more layers they are, the better to keep people motivated. Manager is happy because every 2 years I'm giving you something. And, with that, I can keep you for another few years because you're going to keep quiet. You're not going to bother me about, as a thing. So it's been used, more as a default way of acknowledging people, appreciating people, it is not meant for as a fundamental thing. Now, but you're stuck with it because you don't know how else to do it. People have gotten used to it. If you don't give it, then there are people quitting. Real problems. These are not artificial problems. They're real problems. Okay. The second is in terms of your expertise and experience, which is more about, will I lose the, oversight, which brings in reviews, which brings in expertise into decision-making, into processes? Will that go away if I flatten it and make it a fewer layers? So these are now genuine concerns that people have. For the expertise section, I think there are better solutions. Okay, there are certainly ways in which that can be managed, outside of a hierarchy. The people problem is real, especially in India, and I don't think there is an immediate fix for it unless you create something where you have genuine recognitions and acknowledgements, kind of which happen and people are actually okay with to deal with that. So now, if you're able to handle these two things, then scalability is not an issue. Okay, fundamentally, that is the answer, that you have to solve for the expertise or the oversight that was coming from a hierarchy and make it, for example, you create like an oversight committee, you have more collaboration with leaders. Now, that will bring in the same level of review that was required, that was happening in a hierarchy with a much flatter kind of a thing. With people, you need to probably, appreciate and acknowledge them a lot more if you're able to give them, because fundamentally that's what is missing and people are looking for it, in a promotion. When you're able to solve that, then scalability becomes a reality. A lot of, organizations have done it. As a culture, they've done it as a thing. It's not impossible to do, but it is a culture change. It is not a decision, but it's a culture change where everybody, because somebody is getting something still out of the existing structures, which is why it exists. It is not only the people, people are getting the promotions, management is getting the comfort. So that is why it's existing. But it is holding things back. It's holding people back. It's holding companies back. And that's, really the reason why these changes have to be looked at. It will come with some pain. It's not a painless process. It will come with some pain, but it's doable.
Okay, so I'm actually inquisitive, and that's why it's the pause, that it will come with pain. It's not going to come easy. So if it's going to come with pain, then how exactly are we going to deal with the pain? And so as leaders and also as employees, we need to understand the guidelines, that whether we are in for a flat structure or hierarchical structure to even move on. And that brings me to the next question for you, Colin, to understand how do you maintain this flat organizational structure and what could be the advantages and disadvantages, which I now want to hear from you, that, what could be the pros and cons according to you?
Absolutely, Raina. So I think, a part of it, Sriram just mentioned. But I think,
Yeah.
in today's situation, when we're looking at, talent, and we're looking at, aspirations of talent, and this reminds me way back in when I started my career and when I'd seen people, people used to look forward for promotions, people used to look forward for elevations. People used to, we had organizations that had a hierarchy of almost 15, if I remember in the past, almost 15 levels. Yeah, and Sriram is probably agree with me, most of the older organizations had 15, 16 levels, and, people felt that, every second, third year, they would, get an elevation, and it felt like a great moment. So that, to my mind, is something that one has to deal with, because what is really an elevation? Is there an increase in job role? Is there an increase in job responsibility? Is there a significant? I think I use the word significant because I think that's very important. Is there a significant role change that has resulted in an assumed responsibility? It's only when that takes place and there is a vacancy that exists, that's when we're talking about an elevation that is possible. Now, in a flatter structure, I think there is a limitation to that. Because let's say you compress a 15 level organization to a 5 level organization, obviously the frequency of that is going to reduce. Yeah. And so I think I see that as a challenge. But I think, one of the challenges, I would say, I don't want to say it as a disadvantage, but I think it's a challenge to deal with. How do you deal with an aspiration? And particularly, I'll use an aspiration in India, where people are tuned to, look at a promotion or an elevation or a role change, a significant role change every 2 years. Everyone wants to, but that will have a limitation factor. And I think the important, the way to deal with this situation is proper communication. Very at the very start of the very beginning, proper communication in what is the role, what is the responsibility, what is the expectation, and therefore what is this organization structured. To me, a flattered organization is a very mature way to look at it, and that's good. That's really the future, because people will tend to realize over a period of time that it's about the job, it's what I'm doing. Is it fulfilling enough? Is it? But today, a large part of our workforce still will have to get tuned to or be brought to that maturity level. And so, that is something that needs to be managed to ensure that you're able to maintain a flat organization structure. Because to me, flat organization structures are very easy to do, but how do you maintain it as long as the communication goes properly, as long as people are getting enrichment in their job, in their role, as long as there is quicker and agility in span of control and decisions. I think this makes significant benefit. Yeah, so I think that is one. The second, to me, if you look at from an organization growth prospect, and we're looking at diversifying, managing more businesses. What is the long-term perspective that organizations will look at? And so, therefore, what is the kind of structure that we need to keep? So, if you're keeping a flat structure, does it enable long-term organization aspiration? So the aspiration of the organization is to acquire, to grow bigger, to grow larger in size. Is your structure really going to be sustainable? And that's the important piece to keep in mind. And I think the other part of it is, create an organization that is able to deliver the best from each category of people. So if you have specific teams, how do you ensure that you can declutter those teams and deliver more value out of that? So this, in my mind, I think will ensure that you're able to maintain the organization and you're able to balance between the significant advantages that a flat organization has, and actually balance out the significant challenges that you have, and deal with it from a long-term perspective. And it's not going to be very easy, because in India we still have to tune ourselves. But I think the workforce is maturing. If you look at, we had designations, we had titles which were used in different industries. People have now matured out of that. They were, banking used more liberal titles. People have matured out of it, that banking industry, have different titles, and therefore that's a different way of working. So people have matured to understand it's what you do, that it's what you do and what you get that actually means what's your value. Yeah. And well, that's a separate part. The important part is of how you're able to create an organization that is more nimble, is more quicker, and is able to deliver a greater value over a long-term
Right.
perspective.
So, Sriram, I'd like to take you from that to the last say on if you have to create an organizational structure today, what kind of businesses do you think will follow this sustainable, nimble, humble environment without any tags, without any titles? So, do you have any example to narrate? And finally, giving the last say of how you think today's leaders could build this kind of structure.
Yeah. So I don't have any specific examples, but I know that, see, this is the thing that today there are two things I want to speak about. One is that there is a lot of fear of failure that organizations have, which, where that the slightest mistake is pulled up. And now that is not an environment that is going to encourage innovation, ideas, and things like that. I see this in across the board. And really, without that, kind of thing changing, where you have to have some tolerance for, kind of failure, and only with experimentation, and we know that from history that, Edison or these kind of, they experimented so much to get to that one result, right? Now, but here today in our world is that you have to get it right the first time. If you don't, then there's a problem. And that's not something that's going to encourage, kind of innovation. So that's one big issue that I see that we have to address. And really, that fear of failure is what holds back these things, saying that because you're scared, you put all these layers. So somebody will check, 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 check. Finally, innovation will get killed, and something will get done. But that's, what's happening with that is that we are doing just enough as an organization, as individuals, more than quiet quitting. Now, I am worried about just enough as a problem. 70% of the organization is barely engaged. Only 30% is actively engaged, which means how much you are losing in terms of productivity, profitability. Also, 70% of your population is doing just enough, which means that if they just do a little bit, 20% more, that much, explosion happens in your output. But you're not able to get that out of people. And fundamentally, that's where our problem is. More than the structure, it's about enabling people to really go beyond that, which is to find that meaning, find that purpose. And my, I think realization after working for so long is that you have to make it a human first organization. Irrespective of your structure, I think the critical key is in making things human first, because I think that is what will change things. You change your metrics, you change your behaviors, you change your programs, and trust people. Give them directions, give them some deliberate directions, give them responsible freedom. Okay, but then enable people to be themselves. They will deliver the results for you. And I think our missing piece today is in terms of how we really treat people for those results. We expect people to follow the rules, follow your processes, rather than, kind of enabling places to make people come alive. Make people come alive, they will, kind of deliver things for you, rather than, you trying to get things out of them. And really, I think that's where things are going. It'll anyway happen. I think in the next few years, it'll anyway happen, because the next gen is coming. They're demanding this. COVID has make people realize that they want more out of life. So it's anyway coming. It's just a matter of time. Progressive organizations will get it faster. Others will be followers. But I think our solution is in driving human first, happy workplaces with structures which support that. And typically kind of a shorter, a narrower structure will enable that, because connections are better. You have more layers, your connections are not there. You need connect to inspire people. The closer the connections are, you actually know what the problem is. You can hear things, you can give people ideas. It's much easier to deal with, making people come alive when you have shorter structures. And really, that's my key.
And if I can just add
Thank
one
you.
more, I think,
Go
I
ahead,
just
Paul.
heard Sriram mention connections, and I think that's so very critical, particularly with with managers. And I think that entire flat organization structure can just ensure that connections are more frequent, you know. And I think the advantage in the last 2 years we've had greater connection with the top thanks to digital, though at least that was the medium, but it ensured greater connection from the top to the lowest level. I think that made a big difference. So it's all about connecting the dots that actually make a big difference in this entire workspace. Yeah.
Thank you. I think that really brings me to the end of all the crux of the story that can be encompassed for you. Enable the human element and program the driving connections, flatten or hierarchical, maintain the structure. And structure plus connections is going to give you the agility of a sustainable, humble, and great hierarchy in your organization. Thank you so much, both you leaders. I think you were amazing to hear. And I'm sure the entire audience has got umpty number of value from the platform, from you guys, and from all of us. Over to you, HRAI, for running the poll and getting the feedback. Thank you so much once more.
Thank you, Dr. Raina. We will be running a poll to have the participants' valuable feedback on this session. So thank you, Dr. Raina, for taking us through this session and making it interactive and exciting. Thank you, Mr. Colin and Mr. Sriram, for sharing your valuable thoughts and insights with us. It has been a privilege having you all for this engrossing session. To all those who wish to learn and grow, you can access the recording of our today's session on our YouTube channel, YouTube link shared in the chat window. Before we conclude with today's session, we would also want to thank all our event partners, Geisha, NASCOM COE, Talgro, TLE, WICCI, LinkedIn Local, Ahmedabad and India for supporting HRAI events. To know more about these associations, request you to kindly visit the link provided in the chat window. Do join us for our next Connecting the Dots on 16th of February 2023. That's it from our today's webinar. Hope to see you soon. Stay safe, take care, and bye for now. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Colin. Thank you, Mr. Sriram. Thank you, Dr. Raina. Bye.
Thank you, Dr. Raina, and thank you, Sriram. Thanks, Faisal. Good to meet all of you.
Thank
Take care.
you.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.